my friends. Welcome to another weekly session of Emotional Café. Today, our topic is rising above our emotions. And I love every single topic that is related to our emotions because we all like to have a sense of controlling situations and people and ourselves. And I always link our emotions to control because I believe that since we like so much to have control over things and we cannot control other people or the way they act or the way they feel, we do have the power to control ourselves and control our emotions. So I think it's a powerful topic that we can look from a different perspective in a way that can help us to rise above our emotions. One of the major situations that I have encountered when assisting individuals is the fact that they feel that their emotions are so overwhelming that somehow they cannot act in a certain way because of their emotions. I remember someone sharing with me once and saying, Xiomara, I can't control my emotions. There's no way you can control them. And I said, oh, yes, you can. And actually, this is something really important because it's the only way that we can rise above our emotions. Otherwise, we are going to be acting based on our emotions. And let me tell you this. When you have to make a decision, when you have to face a situation, you cannot do it only from the emotional perspective. You need to be able to look at all the angles and realize how it's going to have an impact on you. So this session today, I wanted to share with you some helpful tools and emotional resources that have helped me cope with my emotions and control them in order to rise above them, in order not to let them decide for me, and in order not to let me feel so overwhelmed by it that somehow they take away my joy and my peace. So that's what this session is about. So I really hope you can benefit from it, and if you feel like it, you can take a piece of paper and you can write some of these tips that I'm going to give you that has helped me so much. One of the things that I always use, and it's been so powerful with the people when I'm working with them, has to do with whatever situation they're going through and whatever emotion they're experiencing. I always put the example, let's imagine that this is not happening to you. Let's imagine that this is happening to your best friend or maybe to your sister or your brother, someone that you love. And let's look at the situation from the outside, not from inside and you and how you feel, but from the other side of the street. If this was happening to your best friend, what would you think about this situation? What will you recommend they do? What would you tell them? What will be your perspective? What will be your feedback for them? It is just amazing the impact that this simple exercise has on them, because even though they're feeling the emotion and then sometimes they don't want to look at the situation from a different perspective, it does force them to look at it and see some solutions, see some light at the end of the tunnel, and realize different ways to cope with whatever is it that they're going through. And this is something that you can do too. Always imagine when you don't know what to do, when there's something happening to you and you don't know how to deal with it because you are so emotionally involved, think about if this same situation was happening to your best friend. What would you recommend? What would you tell them? What will be your advice? What will be your perspective? What would you think about it? Because sometimes we find ourselves justifying what's going on and finding reasons and excuses to continue being overwhelmed by the emotion instead of trying to move on and rise above it. So that's why I want to share with you some of the ideas that I brought that are important for you to have the signs or signals that you are rising above your emotion. What do you need to do? What do you need to nurture within yourself in order to be able to rise above your emotions? And the first step, main one, will be to identify what's happening. What is it that you're feeling? What the emotion that it's affecting you or that you're experiencing at this precise moment. What is your emotion? Being able to be aware of your own emotions and others as well, because it is important to know, because sometimes someone does something that causes a reaction in you, and that's what emotions are all about. They are simply the reactions and responses that we have to anything that happens. Is an internal response to whatever's happening outside. So sometimes they're so overwhelming, and this is something that I can speak on my own experience, for my own experience. Sometimes they can be so overwhelming because I don't know what's going on and I'm just feeling it. But when I move out of myself and I'm kind of cross to the other side of the street in my mind and I'm able to look at it, then I can name it. Then I know what is it that it's causing me. If it's that it's causing me anger, or maybe I'm sad, or maybe I'm afraid, I'm having fears. Whatever is it that you are experiencing, you need to be able to name it and identify it, because that's, as I said before, the first step. There's nothing you can do if you don't know what you're feeling. So you have to name it. You have to be able to verbalize it in your mind and say to yourself, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Now, once you know what you're feeling, once you know and you can name it, then you need to practice to express and verbalize it in an appropriate way. You don't have to be disrespectful. You don't have to insult anybody. You don't have to mistreat anybody. You don't have to harm anyone. You just have to be able to say, this is how I feel, in an appropriate way. You don't have to yell. You don't have to scream. You don't have to cry. You don't have to have an outburst. You just have to say it out loud in an appropriate way. Now, something really important is that we need to get rid of our hypersensitivity cape that sometimes we're wearing, thinking that everything that happens has to do with us, thinking that everything someone does is to hurt us or to make us feel bad. It doesn't happen like that. You cannot be finding yourself offended for every single little thing. You need to put your hypersensitivity aside in order to be able to keep your perspective clear. You need also, another important thing is that we need to be able to accept when we've made a mistake, when we are wrong. We need to be able to say, yeah, I was wrong, or this was wrong, and to try to fix it, to try to do our part. Because from doing that, we're learning to prevent it later on. We're learning not to continue doing the same mistakes all over again. So that's very important. We also need to take off our perfectionism glasses. We need to stop with being so rigid about how people need to act and how people need to manage themselves and the way others act. Sometimes we find coping with frustration, and it has to do with the fact that we want others to just do what we want them to do. And we need to understand everybody is unique and everybody has their own way to manage themselves. And by learning to accept our differences is the key to having our harmonious relationships. That's going to be the main key for good interactions with others. So stop being so perfectionist when it comes to what you do and what others need to do, because you're taking the joy away from your relationships. Another important aspect is to keep a healthy lifestyle. We need to keep a well-balanced life. There's no way that we're going to be able to rise above our emotions when we cannot keep a balanced life. Why? Because if we don't have a good night's sleep, or if we don't have a good diet, and we're not eating healthy, and we're not getting all the nutrients that we need, and we're not resting enough, what do you think is going to happen? We're going to be cranky. We're going to be hypersensitive to anything that happens. So therefore, maintaining a healthy lifestyle is going to contribute to us being able to control our emotions and rise above them. Another important thing is to always focus on the positive, regardless the adversity, regardless the situations or setbacks that don't turn out to be the way we want them to be. Let's try to focus on the positive. And same thing with the people. Everybody's got a good side, good things that they do, their positive traits. Let's try to see what's positive in people instead of always focusing on the negative. And in order to do that, we also need to be very selective when it comes to the people surrounding us, our friends, and the kind of interaction that we have. Let's try to get together with people that can actually nurture that positive state of mind and the joy inside of us. Another important thing is to learn to say no. It is amazing how hard it is for us to set boundaries, and we need to be able to learn to say no, especially when it comes to our well-being. We don't need to mistreat, we don't need to be disrespectful, but saying no in an assertive way, it's gonna help us, protect ourselves, and be able to maintain good relationships with everybody. As I always say, you cannot stop them from trying to come and manipulate you or harm you or do things to you, but you can always control how they're going to affect you. So keep that in mind. The other important thing is to practice appreciation in everything we do and with everything we have. Being able to practice gratitude and feel thankful for the people and the things in our life instead of just always keeping an eye on what we don't have. That is always going to trigger toxic emotions within ourselves that are not going to be healthy for us. So in order to rise above your emotions, gratitude plays a very important role, and appreciating and showing appreciation is going to help you a lot. We need to turn the page over. We cannot continue bringing the past to the present. The past has no place in the present. So by acknowledging that the past is history and moving on, it's gonna help us keep our emotions on track. Sometimes our emotions are being triggered by us hook up to the past and continuing reliving experiences and emotions that no longer fit within the context of situation or life that we have nowadays. Another important thing is to always recognize your strength and weakness. Like everybody, we're not perfect, but we got good things. We have strength, and we also have those weaknesses that we could work on and try to kind of make it better. As I always say, I'm always promoting adjustments as needed. If you don't like something in your life, if there's something you want to learn, what is it that you need to do in order to make it better? Don't be afraid of changes. Be open to the fact that changes is a normal part of life. And when you have this attitude, then you won't be such on edge, expecting something to happen that you're not going to like it. Be aware. Change is something natural. It's going to happen. And once you have this attitude, you're going to be able to cope with change in a much better way. Be proactive instead of reactive. Always keeping your actions together. If you want something, make it happen. Don't expect others to do it for you. Don't expect that it's going to happen just because you wanted it to happen, but simply put your actions together. So be a pro-action person instead of always reacting to everything that happens. Another important thing that is going to help us to rise above our emotion is a good management of our time. When we don't have good management, when we don't manage our time in an effective way, we start feeling frustrated, we start feeling angry, we start coping with all these other emotions that start like the little snowball getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's the same thing. You see how you make a snowball, and if you roll it over the snow, it will continue growing. It's the same thing with the emotions. So this is extremely important for us in order to rise above them. And finally, and one of the most important tools that I can give you today is that we need to be able to exercise generating and creating moments of joy, moments to feel happy every day. That doesn't mean that our life is going to be perfect. That doesn't mean that we're going to be happy all the time. But it does mean that in every day there's something good that we could do. In every day there's something a moment that we can feel pressured, a moment that we can feel joyful about life and about what we do. And it's our responsibility to be able to have those moments of happiness created for ourselves. It's amazing, but some people don't realize that happiness is a decision that we make, and it's an attitude that we nurture every day by understanding that life in life terms will have highs and lows. It will have good moments and bad moments, but it's up to us to make the good ones count. It's up to us to create those moments, to find those simple ways that we can feel better every single day. And again, if there's something you don't like, if there's something that is not working, it is your responsibility to make the adjustments or make the changes that you need in order for your life to be better. But it's your responsibility to decide what kind of attitude you're going to have. If you're going to be whining and complaining about it, or if you're going to have a joyful attitude and you're going to be happy with the life you have and continue to make it better. I'm Xiomara Mayo Ingram, and I want to thank you for joining me in Emotional Cafe. I hope to see you next week for our next session. See you then.